Hey guys, it's Derek. I'm back from my Yellowstone trip. I brought my G85 and 3 lenses with me, the 7-14 f4, the Midicon 25mm f0.95, and the Panasonic 100-300 f4 to 5.6 version 2. And the reason I brought these 3 lenses was that I thought that they would cover every situation that I faced, and luckily they did, probably 99% of the time. There was one chance where I was shooting in the rain and I wish I'd brought my 12-60 kit lens. I didn't have it, but I just kind of worked with, well, I ducked under a Chinese tourist's umbrella and used my 7-14. But in this video, I'm just going to show you some sample stills and sample videos I took and kind of relate that to the lenses I used and say why the G85 is such a good camera to have around on trips like this. So first I'll talk about the G85 itself. I made the decision early on in this video, and I'm glad I did, to use 1080p 60 frames per second instead of 4K 24 or 30 frames per second. Now this is a change from my previous trip video, my Grand Canyon rim to rim to rim video, which is also available on my channel. And the reason why I wanted to try 1080p 60, it's actually twofold. Number one, 60 frames per second, I thought with all the movement in my videos, all the panning, all the action, people moving around, 60 would just be a little bit more fluid and would allow for easier pans. The other reason is in 1080p the G85 uses the entire sensor, and 4K it uses a tiny crop of it. So I wanted to get that ultra wide end on the 7-14. And then there's another trick the G85 has up its sleeve. So normally in 1080p it's using the whole sensor and it's cramming that down into 1080p. But you have the option, it's called EX teleconverter. It's in the menus. If you enable that, and I have it assigned to one of my function keys, I think function 3, if I hit that and turn it on, it punches in and takes a 1920 by 1080 region of the center of the sensor, so you're basically getting pixel level 1080p, essentially giving you a pretty hefty degree of magnification when you're shooting video. And best of all, this has no degrading effect on the footage because you're still using pixel level 1080p. You're just not oversampling from the whole sensor. I'm going to show you that when I get to some of my telephoto shots. Alright, so the first lens I'm going to cover is the wide end, the 7-14mm f4 from Panasonic. And this is a nice little, pretty lightweight lens, and what really stood out in this trip, in video especially, is having this ability to do these slow zooms with this lens. I'm going to show you in this clip. You can see as I'm panning, I'm zooming out and really kind of drawing you into the image. And then this clip of Mesa Falls in Idaho really lets you see what's going on. And it's so easy to zoom smoothly with this lens. It has just the right amount of resistance that when you're zooming there's no unpleasant hitches or bumps, so you can get that effect. And the throw is pretty short. You just kind of crank your arm and then, you know, kind of preload it and then do your zoom. And something else that surprised me, I'm looking at my samples here. Okay, here's a picture of the Grand Prismatic Spring. Really sucks you into the action. You see all that steam drifting toward you. Really an atmospheric lens to use, and something that makes this trip video really stand out. Okay, the still shot I'm going to take you really surprised me. This is a shot of the Milky Way taken in Island Park, Idaho. And for this shot I used ISO 6400, 30 seconds, and f4. And yeah, there's plenty of noise, but the shot itself actually doesn't look too bad at normal magnifications. If you're going to be printing this big, it's going to be pretty noisy. But it's still impressive you can take a shot like this with an f4 lens, especially on micro four thirds. Now this next shot is Mesa Falls. Really a beautiful shot. I think I want to print this one, guys. It just has such great color and tonality. The clouds are a little bit bright, but other than that, it's hard for me to technically fault this image. Alright guys, the next lens I'm going to show you in terms of my trip video is the Midicon 25mm f0.95. Now basically during the day this filter, this is a B&W 6-stop multi-coated ND filter, the F Pro line. And during the day, this filter lived on this lens for stills because sometimes I was a bit too lazy to take it off, and for video because I absolutely had to have it to get that. I had it set to 1/125th of a second, shooting 60 frames per second to roughly get double the frame rate for the shutter speed. So that meant that I had to have this filter on if I was shooting at larger apertures like f/0.95. And I love doing that because in 1080p, you're not quite as critical on the sharpness and the depth of field. So you can shoot pretty confidently at 0.95 and get video samples like this of my friends here by the lake in Grand Teton. And now take a look at this one. This is making breakfast, and I mean, this really has a nice professional look to it. And then to really show off this lens, this is taking the filter off, of course, letting all the light in. This is a shot taken after dusk, basically just very, very little light to work with. I knocked the shutter speed on the video down to 1/60th of a second and ISO 6400, which is the highest it goes for video, and of course f/0.95. Now yeah, there's some noise, there's some detail loss, but the fact that I can film in lighting like this where I can barely even see in front of me is just incredible. I mean, this is a micro four thirds camera. This is not an A7S or anything exotic or expensive like that. So this camera paired with some fast glass, which by the way, this is available for under $400, really opens up some avenues for low light photography. So this lens was a lot of fun to bring on this trip, and you can see in this shot you get that shallow depth of field effect. You do get good sharpness if you nail it. If you don't, you know, you kind of want to take several shots, kind of moving in and out just a little bit just to make sure you nail it. Even using focus magnification and peaking, you can still falter a little bit with this lens. And there is some chromatic aberration. You can fix that in post. It's not that big of a deal. And then here's a shot stopped down a bit, just a great landscape perspective. So yeah, this was a great lens to take along. I'm glad I brought it. It was great to have the manual focus ability in video. I could film and then smoothly zoom between subjects, not getting any of that overshoot you get with autofocus on micro four thirds, non-phase detect sensors. So yeah, loved bringing this lens. Alright guys, the last lens I'm going to talk about, and I'm really glad I brought this. I almost left this one behind because it's so big and heavy, is my 100 to 300 millimeter f4 to 5.6 version 2. This is the newest version with dual IS2 and weather sealing. Now let's talk about that weather sealing because I actually had to use it the first time ever with any camera I've owned. I shot out in the rain because a mother bear and two cubs were out frolicking by the side of the road, and I was out there shooting in, you know, pretty between a drizzle and a light rain. My camera was soaked, my lens was soaked. I just made sure when I was finished to, you know, just wipe off the barrel, wipe off the camera. No use letting it sit on there, but yeah, no issues, no fogging or condensation or anything like that. But what really impressed me with this lens is, you can see in the shot of the bears, this is at 300 millimeters. Yeah, there's a little bit of jitter from the image stabilization, but it really locked in using iMovie, and I'm going to show you this in the next clip. iMovie's digital stabilization really cleared up the little jitters you see. Okay, and now this sample is showing the full capability of that 1080p EX teleconverter setting where it punches in a pixel level 1080p region of the sensor. So this is 300 millimeters plus the teleconverter. This bear is obviously very far away, and the fact that I can stabilize it. Now here I'm going to show you the clip now. This is the clip with iMovie stabilization. So I'm probably 200 yards away from this bear, and framing it, it's very difficult, but between the IBIS on the G85 and the iMovie's electronic stabilization, I'm getting a pretty good lock on it. Very impressive, loved having it. And you know, this time of year, I went in late May with my friends. This is when the bears are coming out of hibernation. Over the time span of 6 days, we saw 12 bears. Very unusual, and I'm so glad I had this lens around to capture those moments. Here's a still shot I took of the bear and the cubs. Really nice. And then here's a shot of birds in flight. This is on the Coffee Pot Trail in Idaho, near Island Park. So yeah, I mean, it really was a joy having the G85, having my little low pro backpack with these 3 lenses in it, having the filter. Everything was just ready to go. The battery life was not an issue on the trip. I never dropped below 2/3 of a battery. I made good use of that eco mode, guys. Make sure you have that set up, and make sure you know that for it to shut off, the eye sensor has to be away from your body. You kind of have to hold it out, let it shut off. That's easy to overlook, and you can have it on resting against your body. You might not even know about it. But yeah, I mean, use the eco mode, and this battery will easily last you all day. I took a total of 259 video clips for this video. Of course, I didn't use them all, but it really worked out well. And without further ado, I'm going to link the trip video right here. Please watch it. It really was a lot of fun to put together. It really clicked well. My friends are just raving about it. It makes me happy. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye.